Salini, obviously always Barbara Lee, and Congresswoman Adams has joined us. There she is. Thank you so much. And I know my sister Nidia Velasquez. Oh, how are you? Barragan, thank you so much for joining us. So next, I want my sister, our sister, in this fight. We've been to jail together. We fight together. All kinds of fights. Kika Matos, who's the Director of Immigrant Rights and Racial Justice at the Center for Community Change. Kika. She's right behind me. Come on, Kika. Okay, I'll get she's here.
And I'm here with the future President of the United States, Pateria. Let me just quickly start off by saying that the Trump administration has used very soft language to call what's going on at the border as family separation that's based on a zero tolerance policy. Let me just be clear about something. This is not a zero tolerance policy. What it is a zero humanity policy. It has to stop, and it has to stop now. We at the Center for Community Change Action and Firm Action are going to keep fighting with our families to do everything we can to stop this atrocity. We are going to fight, we're going to put our bodies on the line, but that is not enough. We know that power matters, so as we get closer to the elections, we're going to ramp up our efforts to mobilize the millions of immigrant families whose lives we touch. We are going to knock on doors. We are going to register people to vote. We're going to tap into those hundreds of thousands of young immigrant voters who will be first-time voters, and they will think about their families, and they will think about the atrocities that are happening as they cast their ballots. And let me say this, not only that, we intend to punish each and every single legislator who has lacked the decency and the humanity to stop the atrocities at the border and advance humane immigration laws. Let me close by saying that history is not going to look kindly on this chapter in our nation's history. And so it's up to all of us to go beyond our comfort zones and do everything we can to stop this madness. We must do it before this nation loses its soul and its fragile democracy.
Thank you. I know we have Diane Deguet. She's joined us from Colorado. And where's Judy Chu? I'm so sorry, Judy. She's been part of this movement from the very first day. Oh, thank you, Ruben Kiwan from Las Vegas, Nevada is here with us. Thank you, Ruben. So, Elis Mio, she's president of the Feminist Majority. Please come and join us.
We're very proud to be here fighting for children's rights, women's rights, human and humane treatment of people. This is preposterous, and I'm telling you that we also will be registering to vote. We got a bunch of young people here. We're making sure that immigrant rights are not only on the table, they're going to be first. We're going to make sure that we stand together. I never thought that we would have a day where children are being used as just leverage, as pawns, as for ransom. It's not going to be tolerated. We got to stop that before the election, but we will always remember what happened here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is important, this moment, to demonstrate the breadth and the depth of our movement, to show that the Feminist Majority and the National Organization for Women and women and feminist organizations throughout this country are joining us. And with that said, I'd like Jen Epps, she's the co-executive director of the Center for Popular Democracy. Please join us. Come on. Hi.
Hi. Wow. Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Absadison, president of the Center for Popular Democracy Action. We are a national network of grassroots community organizations and proud to be affiliated with CASA in Action. Do you hear from CASA? Make some noise. I don't have a lot to say other than this. You know, I have been here all week with my daughter. I have folks from Los Angeles where we live who have joined us because young people know They watch the news, they are seeing what's happening to children just like them, and they are asking their parents to show the leadership that this president will not. I am the great-granddaughter of a sharecropper. And for those of you who don't know what sharecropping is, it was basically slavery. They gave it another name, but they maintained the status of slavery. My grandmother left the South to move to Milwaukee because she put it, she wasn't having babies in the South, but because she wanted a better life. And when she moved as a black woman to Wisconsin, they told her, you don't belong here. You don't deserve to be in our community. My father in the 60s, he marched for open housing because he wanted the right to live, to raise his family, to have children and dignity wherever he stood within the borders of this country. That is what our country is about. It is the freedom to stay in the place where we call home and the freedom to move when the place we call home can't provide for our children and our communities what we need. Our families who are coming to this country, whether they're coming as migrants, whether they're coming as immigrants, whether they're undocumented or they're seeking asylum, they are seeking the freedoms that we claim to the world we represent. We cannot tell the world we are a beacon of democracy and freedom and then at home separate children under conditions that seem like the Holocaust, under conditions that seem like the separation of Native American families, under conditions that seem like Japanese internment. And for those of you who say that this is overblown and say that this is not the moment we are in, I ask you to look at the babies who are crying. When you as an individual will take a child like my daughter away from their mother, watch that child cry out for home and do nothing, to remain inactive is to be complacent. So I'm not calling on the Trump administration, I'm calling on good people of every background, of every faith, and of every status to stand up right now, to get on the borders, to get in the street, to come to the halls of Congress. But whatever you do, do not sit back silently while this administration creates and continues to perpetuate these atrocities. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just say that Center for Community Change and Center for Popular Democracy, CASA, firm, I want you all to know, the members of Congress and you are one and the same. We're not going to let National Organization for Women and our organizations out there and all these organizations, we're tied together until we free these children from their bondage.
That's right.
We need to bring I know we have scientists as members of Congress and others, but I'd like to bring a scientist up here. Let's listen to Dr. Angela McClain, CEO of the National Association of Social Workers. I think we'd like to bring him up and give a scientific point of view. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm Angela McClain, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Association of Social Workers. I thank you for letting me speak on behalf of the 700,000 social workers across this country. And I've been hearing from them every day and night saying we have to stand up, we have to do something to stop this. This policy is wrong, it is inhumane, it is malicious, but worst of all, it traumatizes children, it hurts children. We have all kinds of studies and research studies to let us know about the trauma this causes. I worked in the child welfare arena for 20 years. I last worked as a commissioner of the Department of Children and Families in Massachusetts. I know firsthand the trauma and the harm that this policy is causing children. NASW and social workers across this country, we're going to do all we can to work with Congress to end this policy. In the meantime, we're going to use our skills and we're going to work hard to help these children and families. This policy has to stop. It is inhumane. My brother said, basta, enough is enough is enough. We ask everyone across this great country to stand up, to stand with us to end this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Camilla, you have a quick announcement, please.
I have a quick announcement. I want to thank Ben and Billy for being with me today, the children that are here, and all my colleagues and my good colleague from Illinois for always being at the front of this fight. on June 30th, Saturday, June 30th. And I hope to God that this policy is changed today. But we are going to mobilize a mass mobilization Saturday, June 30th at 11 o'clock at Lafayette Square, right in front of the White House, because the Trump administration, President Trump, can change this policy today. And in the 36 hours that we announced this mass mobilization, which is being anchored by Move On and by the National Domestic Workers Alliance, but with a coalition of over 200 groups, the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights, the NEA, the AFT, the SEIU, every faith organizations, the Unitarian Universalists, everybody is outraged, and we have over 200 events across the country. 145,000 people have already signed up in 36 hours. Go to familiesbelongtogether.org. You can find an event in your city, or you can organize one, or you can send buses here to Washington, D.C. It's time for this to end, and I believe the American people are with us. Thank you.
Look, I'm going to continue what we began, and that is making sure that everybody is part of this fight. And that's sometimes not that easy. So I thank everybody for sticking around. But I think it's important that all our friends and all our allies, both internal and external. And so I'm going to ask somebody who knows a lot more about this than probably all of us collectively. And she's our champion, and she just knows. She's the ranking member on Judiciary, but of the Subcommittee on Immigration, and she's a friend and an ally, Zoe Lawford. Come on up here, Zoe.
Thank you. And thanks to all of my colleagues and all of the people of America who are standing up, telling the administration, not in my name, will you take little children away from their parents. This is an outrage for a civilized nation. You know, the Republicans are trying to say these bills are going to bring up maybe later in the week, stop it. They don't. I'm an immigration lawyer. I used to teach immigration law. The provisions in the bill don't actually stop the separation of children from their parents. It's the president who needs to stop it. And I hope, we know that he is feeling the heat because he's trying to blame Democrats for his own decision. So it's time to keep up the drumbeat that this is not the American way. They are now opening prisons for toddlers and babies. We've had reporters in seeing rooms full of toddlers crying. Is that the country that we believe in? No, it's not. So it is our responsibility, both as legislators, but as voters and as people of conscience, to speak out so the president will change this decision. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ruben, come on up. Ruben Kuhn from Las Vegas, Nevada. Come on up.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, I want to say welcome to all the children this morning. I want to say thank you to Liz for being such a strong leader for our immigrant kids and the kids who sometimes feel that they don't have a voice in this country. My name is Ruben Kiwen, and I represent Las Vegas, Nevada. I just came back from the border yesterday. And let me tell you, I'm heartbroken. I am heartbroken, and I am saddened. I am saddened for my country, the country that had accepted me and my family back in 1988 when we crossed the border. America is better than putting children in cages. America is better than separating kids from their parents. So I went down there with my colleagues to see firsthand what was going on. And I came back disillusioned. I came back emotionally drained because I know that America is better than this. And I couldn't help but think, when I was there at the border, that same border where my family and I crossed 30 years ago, that could have been me and my family. And I couldn't even imagine being separated from my parents at that precise moment. The only people I trust and love, torn away from me, put in a cage, and being told that you cannot see your parents ever again. I can't even imagine that trauma in those kids.
Today. Morning, everybody. Morning. First, I want to say a few words about the situation at the border. As I said last week, We do not want children taken away from their parents. We can enforce our immigration laws without breaking families apart. The administration says it wants Congress to act, and we are. Tomorrow, the House will vote on legislation to keep families together. Under this bill, when people are being prosecuted for illegally crossing the border, families will remain together under DHS custody throughout the length of their legal proceedings. Additional funding is also going to be made available so that DHS has sufficient resources to house and care for families during this entire process. This is obviously something we discussed last night with the President at our conference, and I hope that we will be able to pass this tomorrow. Bottom line is this: we are going to take action to keep families together while we enforce our immigration laws. Second, I want to provide an update on the steps that we've taken to grow our economy for working families. 6 months ago this week, historic tax reform was passed and signed into law. In just this short time, we have started to see real results. Tax reform has already helped improve the lives of so many Americans, which is exactly what we set out to do when we passed this in the first place. Since it took effect, 1 million jobs have already been created. Unemployment is at its lowest level in a half century. Wages are rising, utility bills are going down. Tax reform has been every bit the game changer that we were hoping that we envisioned it would be. It has helped replace uncertainty with growing optimism. People are feeling more confident and in more control of their futures. And that is what this is all about. Not just these 6 months, but 6 months after that, and 6 years after that. It is about creating an economy where it is possible for families living paycheck to paycheck to finally get ahead. It is about getting people on the ladder of opportunity and truly maximizing their potential. Tax reform was a big start. It certainly was one of the biggest starts we could have had, but it doesn't mean we are done. We are going to continue working to strengthen this economy even more so that working families can prosper.
Good morning. In addition, the People's House is continuing our work to combat the opioid epidemic, prevent addiction, and stop the flow of fentanyl that is coming from China and Mexico. These drugs are extremely dangerous and potent, and it underscores why it is so important that we stop these drugs at their source before they cross the border. That's another reason why border security and national security is a priority as we fix our broken immigration system. And let me also be very clear. I do not believe that the government should be separating families and children at the border. As you all know, the President was here yesterday, and I'm encouraged by what our members put forward to ensure that we stop the practice of separating families, we keep our border secure, keep America safe, and find a DACA solution. The immigration issue is not going away.
Experienced a Macy's moment. You know what a Macy's moment is?
What's that?
You're in a department store, and your child, this happened to me as a little boy, I got distracted by something. I start looking at something, and my mom walks off to another part of the store. And then she starts looking for me, and I start looking for her. We can't find each other. And we're separated. And when I finally saw my mom, I said, "Mommy, I couldn't find you." And I was hysterical. And the guilt that a mother feels, a parent feels, for just that moment of separation, and to see a child in such distress. Imagine having the U.S. federal government take your child, say we're going to get them something to eat, give them a bath, and they're separated, not to be seen. The anguish that causes. It is psychological torture what this administration is doing, and the Republicans in Congress are tolerating it. They are promoting it, promoting psychological torture against these young children. It is a scar not only on their lives, but on the country we love. When history looks back on this moment, it will not look kindly upon this administration or the Republican Congress that sat by idly while this administration committed psychological torture against these families. End this policy. End this policy. And restore the good name and reputation of our nation. Linda.
Good morning, and I want to thank all of my colleagues for standing strong on this issue. As a mom, and really basically just as a human being with compassion, my heart ached to hear the sounds of children being held in detention centers crying for their parents. And I don't know anybody who has a heart or any kind of compassion that could not be moved by the trauma that these children are experiencing. Now, our president, he thinks he's being tough on immigration, but the reality is he's just being inhumane. And there's nothing strong about separating children from their parents. There's nothing strong about locking kids up. It's not strength, it's cruelty. And for the Republicans who serve in the United States Congress to stand by in their silence, complicit with such a cruel policy, is shameful and a stain upon our country. Now, this could end today with one phone call from the president to the Attorney General. This policy has never been in place, this zero tolerance policy. It is a creation of this administration. It's not a legislative creation. The president has the power to stop it, and he refuses to do it because, quite frankly, he just doesn't care enough. He doesn't care about refugees fleeing murder and violence and beatings and rapes. He has no compassion when it comes to refugees, and certainly no compassion when it comes to children. En español, soy horrorizada de lo que está pasando con este presidente que está cumpliendo con un sueño peor que podemos imaginar, que es separando los niños de sus padres y de sus familias. Y los republicanos en el Congreso que están aquí, sin decir una palabra, lo están ayudando en hacer esto. Él tiene el poder de parar esto, pero no quiere porque francamente le vale. Pero nosotros vamos a unirnos, vamos a alzar la voz, vamos a estar en la calle, vamos a pelear por la corte, vamos a hacer todo lo posible para parar esta política inhumana. But we're not staying silent, we're standing up, we're speaking out, we're taking to the streets, we're challenging this in the courts, and yes, we're fighting this with legislation. I have a dear colleague, Jerry Nadler, from the Judiciary Committee that has introduced legislation to end this cruel practice. All of us are supportive of that legislation, and the Republicans, silence and lip service. So we want everybody in our communities to stand up, to take to the streets, to say we will not tolerate this policy in a country as great as the United States of America.
Shame!
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 Shame! Everybody! John Lewis, please.
Big John.
Come on.
I just want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for being here. Instead of each one of us, we must never, ever give up. We must be brave, bold, and courageous. It makes me so sad. I cried last night when I heard those babies crying. Knowing that young children have been taken from their mothers. Some of these young children may never, ever see their mother or their fathers again. That's not right, it's not fair, and it's not just. And there cannot be any peace in America until these young children return to their parents and set all of our people free. So it doesn't matter whether we are black or white, Latino, Asian American, or Native American. We are one people, we are one family. We all live in the same house. Not just the American house, but the world house. Some of you know when I was growing up in rural Alabama, the son of a sharecropper, I saw those signs that said white men, white women, colored women, white waiting, colored waiting. But I was inspired by Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr., and I got in the way. I got in trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble. And I said to all of the young people, to all of the children, we are getting in good trouble to set people free. We can do it. If we fail to do it, history will not be kind to us. This is going on too long, and it must stop, and it must stop now, not tomorrow, but now. Now is the time to do what is right.
what is fair and what is just. Please tell me wherever you want me to do. I will go to the borders. I get arrested again. You know, if necessary, I'm prepared to go to jail. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Let's get another troublemaker. Adriano Espaillat. Come on up, Adriano. Thank you. Jan?
Children, we heard today how they're setting up detention centers for tender age children. That means toddlers, children that must be breastfed, children that must be emotionally next to their mother. That's what they're doing today. And be watchful this week, because they will try to tell us that in order for us to get our children back, we got to give up our dreamers. That in order for us to get our children back, we got to give up family reunification. That in order to get our children back, we got to give up diversity visas. We want them all. We want them all, Mr. President, and we won't go away. We will not go away. We will continue to be on your face until we get back our children. Until the dreamers are able to stay safely in the United States. Until families are able to reunify. Until diversity visas continue to make New York City, New York State, and this whole country a melting pot. We will not go away.
Jan. Jan Schakowsky from Chicago.
I've been asking this question. What do you call a country that institutionalizes child abuse? And tragically, today, you call that country the United States of America. I'm the proud daughter of immigrants. That is who we are as a country. I am a mother and a grandmother. I want to tell you, I nursed my babies. I can't stand it when I think about children being ripped from the breasts of a nursing mother. I think about those children, but I think about the mother. The gentleman here, do you know what happens when a nursing mother's child is taken away? The pain, the constant pain, the growing pain in her breasts, the leaking of milk, the reminder every minute that she has been separated from her child. Her whole body is crying out for that child. I can't stand it. And how can America stand it? We cannot. The President of the United States has to hear our cry, even if he doesn't hear the cry of those children, or the mothers, or the fathers. We will not stop until this atrocity ends. We will fight and fight, and when we fight, we win.
Congressman Al Green from Houston.
I'd like to thank Mr. Gutierrez for all of his tireless work to bring this to fruition. I also would like to acknowledge that Congress has a role in this. Obviously, the President has a role because the undeniable truth is that with but a stroke of his pen, he could bring this to an end. The undeniable truth is that he doesn't really have to write, he can call. So I want to also thank the American people. The polls show it, but I don't really need polls to tell me that the American people will not tolerate what they're seeing on the screens. When you see little babies crying for mommy, papa, the American people are not going to tolerate this. So I want to offer a solution. This is a participatory democracy. We all have a role to play. Congress has its role, the executive has its role, and the American people have a role as well. Call the president. Call the president. Call the White House. Call the White House night and day. Call the White House again and again and again. Call the White House and say, Mr. President, I am a part of we the people, and we the people demand that you free these children. We the people demand that you end this policy. Call the White House to the extent that the switchboards cannot tolerate any more calls. And if you do this, even a president whose heart has hardened to the extent that he can see little babies begging and pleading for mothers, fathers, even this president will have to respond. Let the people be heard. Call the president and make your demands known. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. Sheila Jackson Lee.
I want to thank all of the warriors here. And Luis, there is no doubt that you have never stopped. And as John Lewis has said, you've never given up or given out or given in. I want that to be our standard for this week. There is but one action. My hand is up, but it is not in the fists of celebration and laughter that was in the Republican conference. It is up to say that there is one person who immediately, as my voice is heard, can free little Roger. I went to the Valley and spent South Texas, my state, my home, for 2 days, from morning until late at night, to visiting with 9 women, each of whom had lost their children, to picking up little Roger, 9 months old. Roger did not want to be a symbol for the eons of children who have been stripped from their mothers and their fathers. He did not want to be a symbol for the father that committed suicide. He did not, because his children were taken away. He did not want to be a symbol for those women who were fleeing persecution, violence, domestic violence, and gang violence, of whom Attorney General Sessions has said there is no room at the end. He wanted to be with his loved ones. And God forbid, as we have documented, even in our best programs with good people who care about these children, once they're put in these institutions, we have found that these children were returned from our government to human traffickers. And so I don't want to be standing on the side of those who may lose these children. And you, who are the great media under the First Amendment, ask the government, can they find all of the children that are now pouring into these facilities without their parents and not knowing where their parents are and where the children are? I leave you simply with this. In my congressional district, right now as I stand here, 200 people lined up to oppose what I consider a sneak offense to put in place another facility to take those children who are coming not unaccompanied, but have been snatched from their parents. We in Houston will not stand for that, as been evidenced by our leaders. We in America should not stand for that. And we should protect, as these young boys become my good friends, Carlos and Alighieri. They represent what is best of America. It is our children. And my scream is, my shout, and I just joined Jan as I finished, a breastfeeding mom who loses her baby. What more can you say?
Thank you. Well, I don't know if there are any questions. If there are, we can entertain them now. Please. Everybody,
The
please.
Republicans say if you get rid of the catch and release aspect of your proposal, that they're signed. What's answer that one?
Jeff Sessions has stated very clearly that he has put this process into place to deter people from coming to our country. It is legal, Mr. Sessions, to come to the United States if you are fleeing murder, mayhem, torture, abuse, slavery. It's legal. They deserve their day in court before a U.S. immigration judge. But what Mr. Sessions says, that if a woman alleges that she wants asylum in this country and her basis of asylum is that she is being abused by her husband, that she's being abused, that she is at the border being tortured and murdered by a man. You know what Judge Sessions said? That's a private matter. In America, the torture of women, the violation and the rape of women is a public matter. And we stand in an America that says we will not tolerate it. It's not a public matter. It's a very private matter. So let's not mix one thing with the other. Do the right things. Free those children and give their parents their day in court. Look, everybody's not going to get asylum, but everybody deserves their day in court to petition for asylum. What we are doing is closing down our asylum process in the United States. And in order to have people not petition for asylum, they rip their children away. So their justice is taken. Any other questions?
Do you think Sessions and DHS Secretary should resign from this intolerance?
If there's one thing that President Donald Trump says he should have been gone a long time ago, he's been dying to fire him. I don't know why he hired him in the first place, but then of course that's Donald Trump that hired him. So we kind of know why, right? But look, the Secretary of Homeland Security has lost all morals when it comes to protecting children and enforcing our immigration laws. It is clear that the President of the United States has whipped her into shape so that she is more. Why is this important? Because the reason they are treating the children this way, the reason that they are doing raids and deportations, the reason that they are being as mean and nasty and evil and cruel to immigrants as they can imagine is only one purpose: in order to get their voters out next November and retain their dirty, filthy power on the institutions in Washington, D.C. So they will treat children cruelly. They will treat women with abuse. They will pick up people who should be able to stay in this country. They will divide and destroy families so they can go say to their voters, see how good we are, see how mean and nasty we are, see how evil we are. Vote for us, and we will continue that. Thank you so much.